In the last part we saw that Hwan drops Yeomin home, she is drunk and asks Hwan to marry her. Later, she confronts her family, but their indifference makes her feel hopeless and she decides to leave. Yeomin runs into Sung Jae, but leaves as she doesn't want to talk with him. He runs after her and grabs her, asking why did you made Nari cry? He warns her not to bother Nari again as she is going to be his wife. Yeomin is surprised that Sung Jae thinks she will harass her sister just to get revenge. Sung Jae takes Nari's side saying that Yeomin is fierce and intense, while Nari is soft and innocent. Yeomin leaves saying he knows absolutely nothing about Nari. Upset with everything that happened, Yeomin takes a taxi and goes to meet Hwan. She is set on taking the revenge, and asks Hwan to marry her. She says he won't regret it, and he is already being pressurized into getting married. Hwan asks her if she is serious. She says that she didn't even have a drop of beer and is completely sober. Hwan feels it's interesting that she is willing to put everything online for someone like him. He says that he is sure she has heard the rumors about him. But it doesn't matter to Yeomin, as there is only one thing she wants from this. Yeomin says that he wants a man who is much better than her ex-boyfriend. A man who will trigger him immensely when he hears about the marriage. Yeomin knows that Sung Jae has always been jealous of Hwan Yun. Hearing all this, Hwan tosses a key towards her and asks her to follow him if she has the courage. Nervously, she enters the room and freezes when she sees Hwan in a bathrobe. Yeomin feels that Hwan is angry as she made an absurd request. But instead he says that he will give Yeomin a chance to persuade him. Yeomin says that she can become an ideal wife, she won't ask for attention or ask Hwan to love her. She will respect his private life. She wants them to look like they are happy with the marriage in front of public. He steps closer with his magnetic presence, and softly whispers in her ear, "How far do you want to go with the acting?" Her heart betrays her, racing wildly, as he lowers himself with deliberate grace and continues to say, "You are definitely good enough to be my wife." Her eyelids flutter closed, surrendering to the moment. "You come from a prestigious household," he continues, his voice filled with both admiration and intent. "You are well educated," he adds, his tone holding a weight that makes her chest tighten. Then, her eyes meet his, and the world narrows to just the two of them. His gaze is steady, his words tender yet unyielding. "And you," he says, his lips curving into a subtle smile, "have a pretty face, it happens to be my type." Hwan opens his bathrobe saying, he likes to be a little rough, and asks her if she can handle him. His hand reaches out, his fingers grazing the curve of her neck with a touch that sends a shiver down her spine. His voice is low and laced with challenge. "Surely," he says, his gaze locked onto hers, "you didn't ask to marry me without preparing for moments like this?" A lump forms in her throat as tears glisten at the corners of her eyes. Her voice trembles, I did expect this to happen," she stammers. "You did?" Hwan's voice is laced with intrigue, his gaze steady as his fingers toy with the first button of her shirt, slowly undoing it. Her body betrays her resolve, trembling under his touch. He watches her intently, every reaction, every subtle shift in her expression. Leaning in closer, their lips mere inches apart, he allows the tension to thicken like a storm cloud. His hand drifts downward, teasingly close, as his voice drops to a provocative murmur. "So, Yeomin, will you take it off, or do you want me to do it for you?" Her silence shatters as tears brim in her eyes. Hwan pauses, the weight of her vulnerability seeping into the moment. Letting out a heavy sigh, he steps back slightly and raises a hand, gently patting her head with a single finger. His tone firm, yet not unkind, he says, "You were basically trembling out of anxiety. What the hell were you thinking, giving me consent to something like this?" He gets up, closes her shirt button and his bathrobe. Hesitantly, she asks if he was doing this on purpose. Gazing out the window, he says, "Obviously. You were being so naive when you followed me here." Yeomin protests saying, "I am not naive. I had already made up my mind before coming here." He fills up a glass of water and with a firm tone, says, "I am not the type of guy to push boundaries with someone when they have made it clear that they don't want it." Yeomin is surprised when he passes the glass of water towards her and asks, now tell me, what do you truly want? Seeing her confused, he says, you said you would be the perfect wife and give me freedom. So what's in it for you? He continues, do you think you are going to be happy pretending to be a wife? Ever since you brought this up, all you kept talking about was your plan for revenge, so where does your happily ever after fit in? Hearing his questions, she falls into deep thought. What do I want? Is it revenge? Do I want to look happy in front of others? Do I deserve anything more than that? The questions swirl in her mind, leaving her uncertain and unsettled. Watching her struggle with her thoughts, Hwan says, you are asking me to marry you when you don't even know what you want. You are so reckless. Her fists clench tightly at his words. What can I do if I don't know what I want, she says, her voice trembling. Unable to control her emotions, she says through her tears, my life was nothing but enduring all the suffering. I figured I would be getting a new family if I were to marry someone. I thought I could put up with my life until my new family became my new home. She pours all her feeling in front of Hwan. After listening to her, he looks at her and asks, if I don't agree, will you propose to someone else? Maybe. Yes, she replies softly. Taking a moment to compose herself, she adds quietly, I'm sorry for bothering you. As she turns to leave, she pauses, glancing back at him. I don't know if you're upset because you think I was joking, but I was serious about the proposal. I'm sorry if it made you uncomfortable. Just as she turns to leave, Hwan grabs her hand, stopping her in her tracks. Let's do it, he says firmly, his eyes locking with hers. If you are absolutely confident that you will provide me with whatever I want, he adds. Yeomin stares at him, caught off guard, as he continues, so, when will it be? Do you want to get married before Sung Jae does, or after? Will this marriage of convenience lead to revenge or something more? Don't miss what happens next.